No one expected the studio to go silent when the lights came on. But that's exactly what happened the moment Denzel leaned forward in his chair. Eyes locked on the camera like he was about to read the country its final warning. "Let's stop pretending," he said calmly. "That propaganda machine? It's cracking. And everyone sees it." The panel froze. The host blinked like she wasn't sure she heard him right. But Denzel didn't wait. He pointed to the giant screen behind him, showing clip after clip of Trump dismissing rising prices, contradicting his own advisors, claiming victory in situations where even his supporters looked confused. Denzel didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His tone alone felt like a hammer hitting the table. "You can't keep telling people the house isn't on fire when the smoke's already choking them," he said. Eventually, even the loudest machine breaks. A producer off-camera whispered. "Is he really doing this live?" "Oh, he was." The studio chat exploded instantly. "High voltage, did Denzel just call him out like that?" "High voltage," bro went nuclear with a straight face. "High voltage, machine's done," he said what everyone's been thinking. And Trump's defenders? Silent. Like their script had suddenly vanished. The host tried to steer the conversation back, but Denzel wasn't finished. "You can only twist facts for so long before the pressure caves in," he said, tapping the desk. "People feel what's real. No spin survives that." The clip hit social media before the segment even ended. Within 20 minutes it crossed 3 million views. Within an hour, every political podcast in the country was replaying it in slow motion. And somewhere, far from the studio, someone who really didn't like being challenged was watching that moment on repeat, jaw clenched, phone in hand. Tweet half-typed. The machine wasn't just cracking anymore. It had officially been called out. Live, on air, by Denzel. The studio lights burned hotter than usual as the segment rolled on. Trump's team had already released 3 rushed statements trying to deny the collapse of his media network, but none of them matched, and every viewer could see the panic. Then the camera cut back to Denzel. He leaned forward, calm, sharp, unshaken. "Pressure doesn't create lies," he said, voice low and steady. "It exposes the ones already there." The room froze. Even the host didn't breathe. Trump, watching from his team's private feed, reportedly slammed his hand on the table. Denzel continued, "If your machine can't survive the truth, that tells us everything about the machine, and the man running it." The clip hit social media instantly, and within minutes the comments exploded. Some called Denzel fearless. Others said Trump finally met someone who wouldn't bend. And the pressure, the very thing Trump denied, was now visible to the entire country. Live, unavoidable, and growing by the second, the studio atmosphere thickened as the next segment loaded onto the massive screen behind the host. Sharp red and blue graphs revealed the sudden collapse of Trump's propaganda network, viewer trust plunging, subscriptions evaporating, sponsors withdrawing faster than anyone expected. The host hesitated, clearly nervous, but Denzel didn't flinch. He sat there, calm and focused, like a man who had expected this moment long before it arrived. "These numbers aren't an attack," he said slowly, his voice hitting each word with precision. "They're a reflection." The audience shifted in their seats, sensing the shift in power. "When you build an empire on distortion and call it patriotism," Denzel continued, "the collapse isn't a surprise. It's a consequence." Trump's private feed reportedly erupted, shouting, pacing, demands to cut Denzel's mic. But nothing could be done. The broadcast was live coast to coast, millions watching. Denzel leaned toward the camera. "Truth isn't fragile," he said. "Only lies are." The host tried to move on, but Denzel pressed further. "This machine didn't break today. It was breaking the moment it was built." Social media detonated instantly. Hashtags swarmed the trend page, hashtag Denzel shut it down, hashtag truth hit hard, hashtag propaganda crash. Inside the studio, you could almost feel the weight pressing on Trump's shrinking narrative. Because for the first time, someone wasn't afraid to say what everyone else whispered. The studio's tension climbed as the cameras rolled into the next segment. The host attempted to regain control, but the energy in the room had already shifted. Denzel owned the space. He leaned back slightly, eyes locked on the main camera, voice calm but razor-sharp. "A propaganda machine doesn't collapse from criticism," he said. "It collapses when truth finally outweighs the fiction holding it together." The audience reacted with a low wave of murmurs. Producers in the booth desperately searched for ways to soften the blow, but nothing could dilute the moment. Suddenly, the screen behind them flashed with leaked internal memos, panic messages from Trump's media team, revealing chaos, confusion, and contradictory orders. Denzel didn't smile. He didn't gloat. He simply nodded once, as if confirming what he'd known all along. "Real strength isn't measured by how loud you shout," he continued, "but by how well your words survive reality." The host tried to interrupt, but Denzel didn't yield. "If the foundation is built on fear and fabrication," he said, "pressure doesn't just expose it, it destroys it." Across the country, viewers felt the shift. Comment sections flooded instantly. Denzel ended the broadcast. "Trump can't hide this one, this is the moment everything cracked." Trump's advisors reportedly argued off-camera, unsure whether to respond or remain silent. But the silence itself was an answer, one the whole nation could feel. As the broadcast pushed forward, the studio lights dimmed slightly to highlight a new reel cued by the production team, footage contrasting Trump's old promises with the documented failures of his collapsing media empire. The timing was brutal. The energy in the room shifted from tension to revelation. Denzel watched the montage without blinking, his expression carved from stone. When the reel ended, the host hesitated, unsure whether to defend Trump or pivot away. Denzel made the decision for him. "See," he said, his tone firm but eerily controlled, "a mask only works until people start paying attention." The audience fell silent, hanging on every word. "You can call something truth 1,000 times, he continued, "but if the facts don't line up, the mask eventually cracks. And tonight." He motioned toward the screen behind them. It finally shattered. Reports claimed Trump erupted behind the scenes, cursing, demanding a response, accusing the network of betrayal. But every demand only highlighted his desperation. Denzel didn't raise his voice, he didn't need to. "A leader shouldn't fear transparency," he said. "Only a manipulator does." The host glanced at the control booth. Nobody knew how to contain this moment. It was no longer an interview. It was a reckoning. Online, the explosion was instantaneous. Memes, edits, reaction clips, millions of viewers turning Denzel's calm takedown into a viral storm. The message was clear, something irreversible had happened. And both men knew it, the mask had fallen, and the country had seen what was underneath. The control booth was in chaos now, producers whispering, phones buzzing, messages flooding in from executives who suddenly realized the broadcast had spiraled beyond the usual political theater. But on the studio floor, Denzel remained perfectly still, shoulders squared, eyes locked on the host with a calm that felt strangely dangerous. He knew the moment had turned, and he wasn't backing down. The host cleared his throat, trying to steer the conversation toward media misunderstandings, but Denzel cut in instantly. "Misunderstanding," he repeated. "A misunderstanding doesn't generate hundreds of pages of internal panic." The audience reacted with a sharp gasp. Denzel leaned forward. "You don't panic when you're honest. You panic when the throne you built is cracking beneath you." The host tried to interrupt, but Denzel pushed straight through. "Trump's machine wasn't taken down by an enemy," he said. "It collapsed under the weight of its own lies." In a private feed, Trump reportedly shouted at his team to shut it down now, but there was no shutting this moment down. Millions were already watching. Millions were already reacting. Social media threads turned into digital bonfires. Denzel's calling it what it is, the throne finally cracked, Trump can't spin his way out of this one. Denzel's voice dropped lower, more controlled. A leader should hold up a nation, not hide behind a narrative. But when your entire legacy depends on fooling people, the truth becomes your greatest enemy. The host sat frozen, realizing there was no way to soften the blow, no way to redirect the conversation. The shift had already happened. The throne had cracked, live, unfiltered, undeniable. The atmosphere in the studio thickened until it felt like every breath carried weight. The host, visibly shaken now, attempted to regain control with a soft pivot toward different interpretations of truth. But Denzel wasn't having it. He straightened in his chair, expression carved with the kind of conviction that didn't require volume to be heard. Truth doesn't need interpretation, he said slowly. And it damn sure doesn't need permission. The audience went dead silent. In the control booth, a producer rubbed his forehead, realizing the broadcast had reached a point of no return. Denzel continued, voice steady but cutting. You can't rebrand lies as alternative facts. You can't rename manipulation as patriotism. And you can't disguise propaganda as leadership. Every sentence hit like a hammer. The camera zoomed in ever so slightly, capturing the intensity in his eyes. Behind the scenes, Trump's camp scrambled. Drafting emergency statements, pressuring the network, demanding the host push back harder. Nothing worked. Denzel owned the narrative now, not through aggression but through unshakable clarity. If your truth collapses the moment someone questions it, he said, it was never truth to begin with. Social media erupted in real time. This is how you confront power. Denzel didn't blink. Trump's silence says everything. The comment flood wasn't split, it was tidal. Even viewers who normally avoided political talk felt the gravity of what was happening. The host swallowed hard. So you're saying the system failed? Denzel didn't hesitate. No, he said. The system didn't fail. It finally spoke. And for the first time all night, even the cameras seemed to lean in. The studio felt like it had slipped into a different temperature, cooler, heavier, charged with something that didn't need words to be understood. Even the audience sensed it. Every camera focused on Denzel while the host fumbled through note cards, searching for a way to soften the tension. But Denzel wasn't waiting. Silence tells its own story, he said calmly, his eyes never leaving the lens. Especially when the person who built an entire empire on noise suddenly can't speak. The audience murmured, but no one laughed. This wasn't a punchline, it was a verdict. In the control booth, someone whispered, Trump still hasn't issued a response, and another replied, he can't. Anything he says makes it worse. The pressure had shifted entirely. Denzel leaned forward, fingers interlocked. A propaganda machine can spin, mislead, distract, but the moment it faces real accountability, it freezes. Because truth doesn't panic. Only the guilty do. The host tried to steer the conversation away, but Denzel rode right over the attempt. People deserve better than fear wrapped in slogans, he said. They deserve leadership, not a performance. His voice wasn't raised, yet it carried more weight than shouting ever could. Online, clips from the broadcast were already going viral, some showing Trump pacing angrily in a leaked backstage feed, others capturing Denzel's unwavering stare. Comments surged, this is the breaking point, Trump's silence is the confession, Denzel is saying what everyone else is afraid to say. Even longtime political analysts admitted they had never seen Trump this off balance, this cornered, this exposed. As the camera cut back to Denzel, he delivered one final line that landed like a hammer. If the truth feels like an attack, it's because you built your world on lies. And the studio, for a full 3 seconds, was completely, unforgettably, silent. The energy in the studio reached a breaking point, everyone felt it, even the cameras seemed to vibrate with the tension. The host, now visibly sweating, tried one last time to regain control. Let's stay balanced here, he stammered. But balance was long gone. The truth had taken the center seat, and Denzel wasn't letting go. He turned slowly toward the host, voice low and steady. "Balance isn't pretending both sides are equal," he said. "Balance is telling the truth even when it makes someone powerful uncomfortable." In the control booth, alarms buzzed. Trump's team was sending frantic messages demanding immediate pushback, but there was no space for rescue. The narrative had flipped entirely. Denzel clasped his hands on the desk, leaning in with the kind of calm intensity that could slice through steel. "When a leader relies on distortion, fear, and noise," he said, "the moment the truth shows up, everything starts to collapse." A new graphic popped up on screen, polls showing a dramatic drop in public trust toward Trump's media machine. The host froze, unsure whether showing the graphic was a mistake. Denzel didn't even blink. "People are waking up," he said. "And when people wake up, propaganda doesn't fade, it dies." Online, the reaction hit a new level. "This is history. Denzel just broke the whole narrative. Trump can't spin this one no matter how loud he gets." In Trump's private feed, an aide whispered, "Sir, staying silent is making it worse," but Trump reportedly waved him off, jaw clenched. He knew any response could ignite the fire further. Denzel ended the segment with a line that instantly became the quote of the night. "A collapsing story always makes the loudest noise right before it dies." And the moment the broadcast cut to commercial, America knew they'd reached the breaking point. The final act played out not with an explosion, but with silence that felt louder than any scream. As Denzel wrapped up his closing thoughts, there was no applause. No laughter. Just a stunned stillness. The panel, once full of spin and sound bites, sat frozen. Trump, visibly tense, tried to reach for his talking points again. But this time, even his most loyal defender, the host, didn't offer him a life raft. The silence stretched, painful and undeniable. Denzel leaned back in his chair, unbothered. He had said everything that needed to be said. "You can drown in your own noise," he said quietly. "Or you can finally shut up and listen to the truth." That line wasn't shouted. It didn't need to be. It echoed across every platform. Within seconds, hashtags exploded. Hashtag Trump meltdown. Hashtag Denzel did not miss. Hashtag live collapse. The White House press team was already drafting damage control. But no press release could erase what millions had just witnessed. This wasn't a debate, it was a reckoning. And Trump, long the master of chaos, had finally been cornered in a room he couldn't control. Clips from the segment flooded social media. Analysts paused. Networks replayed the footage without interruption. Even conservative commentators, usually quick to shield, were shaken. "That was brutal," one whispered on a competing show. Denzel stood up, adjusted his jacket, and walked off set. No mic drop. No swagger. Just a man who had told the truth and let it speak for itself. The credits rolled over a silent studio. The machine hadn't just cracked. It had collapsed. And this time, everyone saw it happen, live. Truth doesn't shout, it survives. Tonight, you watched a machine built on noise finally crack under the weight of one calm voice. Remember this moment. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was honest. If you felt that, hit subscribe. We're not done exposing what collapses when the lights stay on.